Good evening. It is time for the Iman Report. It is Saturday, March 13th, and what was a very anticlimactic finish to UFC Fight Night 187. I just finished dinner, so sorry. But an anticlimactic finish as Edwards and Bilal Muhammad ends in a no contest due to a foul. So now, what's next for everybody? If you like what you see, please be kind of hit that subscribe button and give this channel a big like. Edwards looked pretty good. He looked like he did not have any ring rust in the first round, and then the second round, due to an inadvertent eye poke, Bilal Muhammad just could not continue. The fight doctor called it, and it was declared a no contest. Unfortunately, there was two fights that were stopped by fouls tonight. There were two fights that ended in the first round by knockout. So this was in less than a minute. So this was a lot of different things tonight in this fight card, but no winners in the main event. I hate I just unfortunately I hate the way the gloves are in the UFC. I really wish they would have gloves that would fully cover the fingers. Not boxing gloves, but something that protects the fingers. So maybe you cut down on these eye pokes a bit. I don't like it. Sadly it finally happened where a main event couldn't continue because of an eye poke, and I've never liked the UFC really does need to think about redoing their gloves. Get gloves that cover the fingers. Not boxing gloves, but gloves that can cover the fingers, so we don't have these fights stopped by an eye poke. And it finally happened in a main event, and it ended up costing Leon Edwards a title shot tonight because of it. But I don't think this fight should be reran. I don't. It was looking like Edwards was pretty much dominating Bilal Muhammad before this fight was stopped. So I really have no interest in seeing this fight reran. But I do think unfortunately for Edwards, it means taking another fight to try to get that title shot, as this no contest doesn't get him any much closer to that title shot. But, there's some better names out there that could be better suited for Leon Edwards to get that title shot, and maybe this fight was maybe never meant to be. Unfortunately, same thing, he was supposed to fight for a long time Khamzat Chimaev, and now his career might be in jeopardy because of long haul COVID-19, unfortunately, and my thoughts and prayers go out to him. I would not want to wish this COVID on anybody, and sadly now long haul COVID might cost Chimaev his career, or it's going to be a long road back to the UFC for Khamzat Chimaev. So it's just been a no-win situation for Bilal Muhammad, for Leon Edwards. He was supposed to fight for a title shot right before the pandemic hit, and then it's just been unfortunate, just been a lot of speed bumps, and now this happens. But what is next for Leon Edwards? I do think another title eliminator shot is what should be next, but with somebody who's more closer to his ranking. Ideally, I think the guy that should fight Leon Edwards next should be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That would be a true title eliminator. The winner of that fight should get the next title shot after Masvidal Usman 2. They are probably going to fight later this summer at some point. Possibly after the revival of Ultimate Fighter. But I do think that is the best matchup to make for Leon Edwards now is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And if not Wonderboy, Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is also a guy that is closing in on a title shot. One of those two fighters is what realistically should be next for Leon Edwards, and that would be a realistic title eliminator. Maybe this fight tonight was just not meant to be. As for Bilal Muhammad, A for effort. He didn't look great, but he didn't look too bad against the top 10 opponent. I do think maybe somebody a little further down in the top 10 is what should be next for Bilal Muhammad. And sadly, he's going to end up with, a lot of people are going to remember him for crying after getting poked. But A for effort for Bilal, and for him, I kind of think he should get rewarded a bit. And I think that should be Neil Magny. Magny might not be as high up as, say, Neil Magny may not be as, say, high up as Leon Edwards, but Neil Magny is a step up in competition for Bilal Muhammad. We could find out a lot about Bilal Muhammad if he were to fight Neil Magny. Those two are a bit closer to each other in the rankings. And I think Magny and Muhammad it would really give us a good gauge if Bilal Muhammad is a legitimate contender. So I do think Neil Magny is actually what should be next for Bilal Muhammad. I do think Bilal should be rewarded for taking this fight on short notice. And he didn't look terrible, but he was overmatched. But he didn't look terrible against Leon Edwards. So I do think Magny versus Bilal is what should be next. But yeah, don't rebook this fight, though. I just hope Edwards can get a normal fight next time against, hopefully, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That's the fight I want to see. On to the co-main event. And I think we have ourselves a new contender at 205. Ryan Spann knocks out Misha Cirkunov 111 in the first round. And this was a big win for Ryan Spann. Spann is now a legitimate contender. And he definitely added some new things after losing to Nikita Krylov in his last fight. And he did call out somebody that I think is a realistic next fight for Ryan Spann. He wants the winner of Smith and Crute. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense. As I say, you got it. I think that is what should be next for Ryan Spann. That was a really smart and good call out for Ryan Spann. He definitely should get the winner of Smith and Crute. That is what should be next. As for Misha Cirkunov, he is now 1-2 in his last 3 fights. That likely means he's going to have to take a step down in competition. Maybe takes a fighter outside the top 15 rankings. And I think that should be the loser of Maxim Grishin and Ovint St. Preux. St. Preux definitely not on has fallen on hard times as of late. And you've got Maxim Grishin, who's coming off a loss. So that's what could be next. I think I'll go with that. Fight before that, Dan 50K Ige, pay the man. I think that fight is deserving of 50K for Dan Ige. He gets a big knockout of Governor Gavin Tucker in the first round with just 22 seconds. This fight is more about Gavin Tucker disrespecting the power of Ige. And Ige getting back on track after a loss to Calvin Kattar. Ige is showing he is a top 10 contender. I do think the next fight should be somebody in the top 10. What should be next for Dan 50K Ige? I say Josh Emmett. Ige versus Emmett. That would be a banger. That could be another 50K fight for Ige or Emmett. But that would be one hell of a banger, and I think that is the fight to make for Ige. That will be fireworks right there. As for Tucker, this is a big step back. He got flat out embarrassed by Dan Ige. He disrespected his power, and he paid the price. And now he's got to take a bit of a step back in competition. But I think what could be next for Tucker is a fight with Makwan Amirkhani. I think that's is what should be next for Gavin Tucker. A hard night for Tucker, but I don't think his star is dimmed that much. But I do think a step down, a little bit of a step down is what should be next for Gavin Tucker. And I do think, yeah, Miss Makwan Amirkhani, a guy who's lost 2 of his last 3, I think. He's a guy that I think's near a little bit closer to where I think Gavin Tucker is ranked. And we could get better gauge on what Gavin Tucker really is at 145 in that fight, in that division. The fight before that, Davey Grant beats Jonathan Martinez via knockout in the second round. Davey Grant is starting to string together some wins at 135. It could be time for Davey Grant to see a step up in competition after that win. At one point he was almost in danger of being cut, but now Grant is looking like a much better fighter. In the 135 division as of late. He's won 3 of his last 3 fights. But he did start off his career 1-2 in the UFC. Now he's 4-2. That's a much better position. But I do think it's time for Davey Grant to see a little bit tougher competition. Currently ranked 46 according to Tapology. And I do think the next fight for him should be, I'm going to go with Randy Costa. I think that could be a hell of a fight between Davey Grant and Randy Costa. That's what should be next. As for Jonathan Martinez, this will be a back to the drawing board type of loss. Try to find Martinez. Martinez ranked 133 at the 135 division. Okay, so give him the loser of Striegel and Munoz is what should be next. In that one. And in the fight before that, Matthews Nicolau beats Manel Kape via split decision. 2 had it 29-28 for Nicolau. That's what I had it. Others had it 29-28 for Kape. Very debatable decision. I don't think it's a robbery by any means, but I do think that this is very debatable, but this is a setback for Kape as he is now 0-2 in the UFC. But I don't think he needs to be cut. I'm not going to go there. But I do think for him, maybe next for Kape is maybe a newcomer. It's time to get maybe Manuel Kape's confidence back in the UFC. He can't afford to go 0-3. That is the kiss of death. But Nicolau now ranks 70 at 125. And my only real knock on this fight for Kape is that he's looked too tentative in this fight, and he needs to be a bit more aggressive. But I do think the winner of Adashev and Benoit is what should be next for Nicolau. That's what I'll go with. And in the first fight of the main card, another no contest, sadly, between Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. Unfortunately, Eric Anders did not learn from last week. This one, I honestly did not honestly think this one was a no contest. I think, unfortunately, Anders did not learn from Peter Yan last week on kneeing a grounded opponent. He ended up kneeing Darren Stewart grounded. I kind of felt this one should have resulted in a disqualification win for Stewart. But it doesn't exactly bode well for Eric Anders either. He is 2-4 previously before that. Now 2-4-1 in his last 7. I don't care to see. I kind of don't care to see Eric Anders in the UFC anymore after this. Anders is not that great of a fighter. His fight IQ is not the greatest. He can't grapple. I could say cut him. Cut Eric Anders. I want him cut. I do. But for Stewart, as I said, don't run back this fight. I think you just give him a new opponent. Treat it like a win for Stewart. And I think the winner of Brendan Allen and Carl Roberson's what should be next for Darren Stewart. We'll go with that. But I am not interested in seeing. But I honestly am not interested in seeing Eric Anders in the octagon anymore. He's not ever going to pan out to be a contender anytime soon. And his poor fight IQ showed tonight. And treat it like a loss. Cut your losses with Stewart. I mean, cut your losses with Anders at this point. But Herb Dean, I am surprised he let the fight go as long as he did. If the fight had continued, I don't know. Anders probably would have probably got the knockout, and Stewart was getting killed in the octagon. And I don't know. I think Herb Dean. This is one where Herb Dean should have stopped the fight before the dumbass decision of Eric Anders. Yeah, I have no confidence in Herb Dean. He's gotten worse the last few years. Herb Dean continues to slip in my mind, in my opinion, as a referee. Now on to the prelim card. Angela Hill beats Ashley Yoder. All three judges had it 30-27. Angela Hill continues to improve in the UFC. She'll never win gold, but she's a ranked fighter. I'll give her that. And Angela Hill's always entertaining to watch in the octagon, so definitely Hill will still get fights in the UFC. Nice to see her snap a 2-fight losing streak. But what could be next for her is the winner of Nina Ansarov and Mackenzie Dern is what should be next for her. As for Ashley Yoder, the loser of Loma Lukbunmi and Sam Hughes is what should be next for Ashley Yoder. Fight before that, Charles Jourdain pulls a big comeback to knock out Marcelo Rojo in what could have ended up being a draw. Jourdain gets the finish with about 30 seconds left of the fight. Good win for Jourdain. Really good comeback by Charles Jourdain in a fight where he said, "I'm not going to leave this to the judges," and he did not. And Air Jourdain now 11-3 in the UFC. Jourdain gets a win. What is next for Jourdain? I say the winner of Choi and Erosa is what should be next for Jourdain. As for what should be next for Rojo, Marcelo Rojo, his first. I think a debutante is what should be next for Marcelo Rojo. Fight before that, Yaya beats Ray Rodriguez via submission. And Yaya made it look very easy tonight in this one. Yaya now 27-10 in the UFC. Ranked 20th at 135. What could be next for Yaya? I say Said Nurmagomedov is what should be next for Yaya. As for Ray Rodriguez, he is 0-2 in the UFC. He's been submitted the 2 times he was in the octagon. For Fight IQ, I think he needs to go back to the regional circuit. That's what should be next for Ray Rodriguez. Fight before that, Narsat Hakparast beats Rafa Garcia 30-27, 2 had it 29-28. What is next for Hakparast? I think what should be next for Hawk Prost is a fight with Vince Pinchel. Vince Pichel and Narsat Hawk Prost. That would be a very fun fight. And as for what should be next for Garcia is a fight against a debutante. And the fight before that, J.J. Aldrich beats Courtney Casey via split decision in a very close fight. What should be next for Aldrich? J.J. Aldrich ranked 57 at flyweight. I say the winner of Kim and Botello is what should be next. And the loser should fight Courtney Casey. Those are what should be next for the next two. Fight before that, Jin Yu Frey beats Gloria DePaula via unanimous decision. Fry, I think, managed to, oh yes, lots of eye pokes tonight, Connor Ogilvy. That was, I wish they would cover the gloves. Thanks for coming into the chat, Connor. Welcome to the show. But with Fry and DePaula, Jin Fry avoids the roster cut tonight. See where Fry is ranked according to Tapology. Jin Fry out of Texas. It's ranked 39 at strawweight. The winner of Loma, Luke Boonme, and Sam Hughes is what should be next for. Fry. As for Gloria DePaula, she could fight a debutante next. And in the opener, in the prelims, Matthew Semmelsberger KOs Jason Witt with just 16 seconds into that fight. And that could get Semmelsberger a jump in competition. Semmelsberger improves to 8-2. He is now ranked 74 at 170. What could be next for Semmelsberger? I think a fight with Mickey Gall is what should be next for Semmelsberger. It's time for Mickey Gall to get back in the octagon and see if Mickey Gall is actually anything in the UFC at this point. Jason Witt, now 1-2 in the UFC. after losing to Semmelsberger. What is next for Jason Witt? The Vanilla Gorilla, now 18-7. I say you go with Peter Sabata as what should be next for Jason Witt. And that will put a bow on UFC Fight Night 187, excuse me. Now it's on to next week, UFC on ESPN. Brunson versus Holland next week. The main event will be Derek Brunson against Kevin Holland. That should be a very good fight. Gregor Gillespie returns to the octagon against Brad Riddell. Tai Tuivasa against Dante Almays. Song Kinan against Max Griffin. Leonardo Santos against Grant Dawson. That's a very underrated fight. And that will lead up to the following week, which will be UFC 260. But I am going to call tonight. Everybody have a good week. I'll be back on air tomorrow to preview the NL East. Stay awesome, stay masked, and things are getting better all the time. Good night.